We shouldn't particularly care if the free speech rights are suspended of people like pro-war think tanks who only exist to gin up reasons to drag the country into war. Hello there, welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman. I'm happy to be joined with my buddy my buddy Tyrone. How you doing, man?
I'm fine.
With
but
by prepositions.
But I heard your fly was down, so
Well, that would mean I'm a hero. That's fine.
You are a hero, Adam. You are. To all 345 subscribers.
I mean, that's 3 digits. Come on, baby. What are we talking about today, my man?
All right. Well, it's still on the topic of Charlie Kirk in a way. Again, I'm still, working through some of that stuff, and you and Bob Murphy recently did one of the crossover episodes where you were reacting to an episode Dave Smith did on his show about the Jimmy Kimmel situation. So this is getting very meta. This is a reaction to a reaction to a reaction.
Maybe we do live in a simulation.
I don't know, man. Turtles carry the earth. Yeah. So, in case folks didn't see that episode, can you give a brief synopsis of what you and Bob covered on that?
Yeah, Dave had a really cool episode where he was making the argument that we shouldn't particularly care if the free speech rights are suspended of people like pro-war think tanks who only exist to gin up reasons to drag the country into war in order to profit military, weapons manufacturers. And he was channeling Curtis Yarvin and his idea of the cathedral, saying that these entities are not really private actors. They are elements of the regime writ large. And people like the Brookings Institute, they're regime intellectuals. And maybe we shouldn't care if they get their free speech rights curtailed. And he said, this applies to Jimmy Kimmel too, and gives a few examples. And it was a really interesting episode. He talked about the origins of the Prussian schooling system in the United States, created in the Second Reich in Germany. And he was just making a case that I just don't care if, this is just the Democrats versus the Republicans is just the Crips versus the Bloods. And I don't care if the side I happen to favor at the moment uses its power to infringe the rights of the other side. And that had me a little worried. But then he reversed course about 3/4 of the way through the episode and said, I still don't think we should do it, and gave a bunch of tactical reasons. And so I thought the distinction was quite interesting. I disagreed with some of it, and I agreed with a whole bunch of it as well. So both Bob and I thought it was an episode that had a bunch of meat on the bone for libertarian types to talk about, so we did.
All right, so I have a lot of thoughts about that episode. And this is going to be a little bit more philosophical, if that's okay with you. I know sometimes we just react to stuff, assuming that the people that watch this show understand the philosophy or the viewpoint that we're coming from, right? And that's interesting. That's fun. But I always find it a little bit more interesting when you get people of the same philosophy sort of disagreeing with each other, right? And so it's always fun to it's even as much fun as it is to watch Charlie Kirk debate a college liberal. It's way more fun to watch a college liberal debate a college liberal on a topic they disagree with, right?
I assume they just throw mud at each other.
Well, I mean, maybe. Dude, that would be Mud wrestling liberal. God, can we turn that into a money-making business?
Or what we do is we create a new YouTube channel called Liberals or Leftists Debating Leftists.
Yeah.
And then we have a moderator and introduce the subject and the resolution.
You know what, dude?
But then hold on. But then we cut to a zoo picture, a video of a zoo where monkeys are just flinging poo on one another.
Yeah. No.
And then that's it.
Dude, you know what would be really cool and it would be easy to do? So, you know how libs of TikTok, they don't really generate any issue. They are original content. They just
they're a portal.
Pull from the internet and then show crazy shit. We take clips of liberals from the 60s and liberals from the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Like take Malcolm X and Barack Obama,
and then cut and splice so they're talking to one another.
You would almost think that they aren't on the same side. That would be brilliant.
We almost have to do this now.
We almost have to do it.
It takes a lot of research and editing to make it happen.
That's a lot of work for me. Because you know who all does the work on this show, everybody?
I don't know why
it ain't that guy, this guy.
I don't know why you're bringing things up. Why you got to bring things up?
All right. So anyway, back. That's a great idea. We need to think about that. All right, back to this though. Dave Smith had an episode where he basically said it's morally okay to cancel Jimmy Kimmel because Jimmy Kimmel is part of the regime and the regime doesn't have rights. But then he said, for tactical reasons, that's not the right thing. That's not a good move to make.
This time.
Okay. But that still doesn't take away the moral part of his original argument. Okay. So I'm half convinced both ways. and this is what I want to flesh out because I get the slippery slope problem. But could we, for the span of the 20 or 30 minutes that this episode is going to be, remove the slippery slope argument from the equation?
First, state it, and then we can remove it.
Okay, sure. So in this case, the slippery slope would be we're going to define the line. So, sorry, folks. If you haven't seen the Dave Smith episode, go watch it. But he's making the point. He's making the point that, you know, should a 35-year-old be able to drive a car? Should a 5-year-old be able to drive a car? Well, there's got to be a line somewhere. We're not exactly sure where that line is. It's arbitrary, but you got to draw a line. And once you draw the line, then you know right and wrong. You know which side you're on. Okay. But the slippery slope is you can move the line and you can move the line and you can move the line until no one's allowed to drive. Or in the case of a totalitarian dictatorship, you can say, these are bad people. They should be executed. But then you can move the line. Well, they're bad people too, and they can.
Well, that's interesting. What I thought you were going to say is, if the Crips expand the scope of government power to do a thing or normalize it, then that makes the new normal, and then the Bloods are going to go advance that infringement on liberty even further.
Okay.
I thought that's what you were going to, rather than referring.
I think it's kind of the same thing, or
okay. So we're gonna eliminate that from the discussion. We're not talking about things getting worse in that dimension.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. And as much as I'm against objective morality, what I am for is objective principles. And what I mean by that is I've chosen libertarian values as my way I want the world to be, the way I want the world, the way I want to structure society. So I've chosen a code of ethics for myself. I call them libertarian ethics, whatever. So for me, I've drawn that line and if you're across that line, you're not on my side. If you're over the line, you're on my side. So I'm having a hard time trying to draw the line here, because, and I think Dave Smith is trying to say it's hard to draw the line. You don't know exactly where to draw the line. But once you draw the line, then it's clear who's right, who's wrong, who can drive, who can't drive. Once you draw the line, you know the sides. How, as libertarians, do we draw a line? You're part of the regime. You're not part of the regime. So, Dave Smith says Jimmy Kimmel is over the line on the regime side. He's part of the regime, therefore evil. We can attack him. He doesn't have rights. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, does that apply to the cameraman who was filming the show that Jimmy Kimmel was on? Like, where's the line? So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about, because I don't think you and Bob touched on this a little bit, but all you guys really said in that episode was there's a slippery slope, because once you define where the line is for one person, well, then you can move the line a little bit. Say, forget the line. What I want to know is, how do you define the line? Because I think Murray Rothbard is right. So I've told you this before. I grew up in a libertarian household. I'm second-generation libertarian. My father taught me libertarianism from a young age. He was a founding member of the Libertarian Party of Maryland. He was libertarian core to his core, but he had a strict line. He said, government, private business. That's the line. It cannot be crossed. So corporations can do what corporations do. Governments do what governments do. Government bad. Everybody else is on the good side. Murray Rothbard comes along and says, no, the regime is more than that. Or Curtis Yarvin comes along and says, nope, it's more than that. Government plus big corporations are the regime. They're the bad guys. Okay. That's a definition. What if it's government, corporations, and the teachers union? Government, corporations, and Jimmy Kimmel. Government, corporations, and the cameraman that's filming Jimmy Kimmel. Define the line for me, Adam. I don't think you and Bob explained all. I just want to know how to define the line, because I'm willing to say that the government is not the enemy. There's a regime, and the regime is more than just the government. It's NGOs. It's the government. It's corporations. It's big media. It's whatever you want to say. But eventually, everything gets swallowed up into that. So where's the line?
Well, I objected to Dave Smith's characterization. Bob in that episode mentioned some work he had done for, I think it was the Mises Institute, trying to decide by which set of characteristics you could analyze certain government activity as legitimate or illegitimate, like something that would exist in a free market. And I appreciate what Bob was doing there, but I found that style of analysis ultimately unpersuasive. You talk about the regime, and it's government plus big corporations. It's media companies influenced by government. These things are welded together, but that doesn't mean we lose the concept of what government is and what corporation is. It just means they've melded themselves together. But could you separate them and then kill with a stake through the heart the government part? You'd be left with a company, and it wouldn't have any power over us. So I just didn't think there was much use in Dave's analysis, and I didn't object. Well, I mean, I thought his analogy about the age of becoming an adult, I thought it was just a bad analogy, because one, your age is a very specific plot line. Birth on one end, death on the other. It's got two poles, you know exactly where you are on it. You can't analyze government/corporate behavior that way. It doesn't work. But my biggest objection was, if we had a small government, if the Constitution were followed, and we are all given our liberty to operate as we see fit in this enormous sphere of private human behavior, and the government was strictly limited to honest policing and honest military defense and honest courts, then we could play together in the same societal game with people who we disagree with a lot. We'd probably separate, you know. You go live your, area the way you want to live, and we don't have to interact with one another. We certainly can't use the government to fleece one another or order each other around, force each other to behave and live in ways we don't agree to. But if we are in that scenario, and when the left gets control, they can shut us down and deprive us of our liberties and our livelihoods, as they did during COVID and during Biden's administration, when they can jail their political opponents, as they tried to do with Trump. If they can murder us, a lot of people blame the left writ large for the 2 attempts on Trump's life and the murder of Charlie Kirk. If we're in that game, then the answer isn't, so when we get government power, we go ahead and give it to them good and hard. I think if you're in that game, you're just fighting, and you can't live in the same political unit anymore. You cannot be in the same polity. You have to separate, because we're no longer living in a society. We're just fighting. And I say, if you're fighting, quit pretending with speeches and votes. Like I said to Bob, people should read your book, Common Sense, which talks about Texas state secession specifically, but just apply that everywhere. You cannot be in the same peaceful society with people who want to use the power of the state to kill you or marginalize you or deprive you of your business or your money. And so I just, in that first 3/4 of Dave's episode, it sounded like he thought the answer was, let's just go ahead and use the power of government in unlibertarian ways, and that's how we win. And I objected to that on multiple fronts, but the biggest one is, no, man, if we're fighting, we're fighting. I don't think we should fight. I think we should separate. If we can't convince these people to behave and live according to the same peaceful rules, private property, freedom of association, the rules of morality we learned in the sandbox as kids, if they can't do that, if all they want to do is fight, then we can't be in the same unit, the same political unit. We just can't. And I think they should have stressed that rather than say, I don't care if Kimmel. And then when he backed off that and said, okay, I'm not talking about politics anymore. I'm just talking about tactical practicality here today in this issue. We're winning. So don't ask the ref to cheat for you when you're already, beating the pants off your opponent. And I thought that was, I was glad he turned around, but I thought it was a weak reason to turn around,
Yeah, it's totally weak. And also, we're winning. Who's the we? Are you Are you a Republican now?
Well, that's true. I mean, on that narrow. I don't know.
I thought he was an anarcho-capitalist libertarian. It's like,
I don't know.
What do you mean we're winning?
Like, I would have hoped that the culture was such that when he said, "Rest in peace, Wheezy," I would have hoped that nobody would have wanted to watch him anymore and he'd lose his job for capitalist reasons. But, the FCC gets involved and just muddies the whole waters. And, you'd have to ask Dave what exactly he means by we. I don't know, man.
Well, one of the things that Dave tried, I don't think he really tried, but maybe by accident came up with the definition of how to draw the line. He seemed to imply, at least, that it has to do with influence or power. So I don't think, if I ask Dave Smith, okay, fine, Jimmy Kimmel's part of the regime. I'll grant you that. Is the cameraman that films Jimmy Kimmel part of the regime? Because if there's no cameraman, there's no Jimmy Kimmel on the airwaves, right? So the cameraman must be part of it. He's attached. And if the cameraman's attached, how about the electrician that built the power cable that goes to the outlet? And how about the guy working at the electric factory that supplies the power to the camera, right? Like where do you draw the line? And what Dave Smith seemed to imply was, because he used the COVID thing, you're out there as a mouthpiece, a propagandist piece for the regime, promoting their pro-masking, pro-vaccination, pro-whatever message, right? But suppose I'm saying that same message that Jimmy Kimmel is saying, but I'm just doing it in the basement in my house, and I got 3 viewers on YouTube. Am I part of the regime? Because I don't have any real influence. So the implication that I think Dave Smith is saying is Jimmy Kimmel is part of the regime because he has influence. He has an ability to sway public opinion. But then in the next sentence, he says, no one's watching Jimmy Kimmel. His ratings are in a toilet. He's got 5 viewers. Well, then doesn't seem like he's part of the regime to me.
Yeah,
so I don't know what he's trying to get at other than he's trying to justify his hatred for Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, he did say those 2 contradictory things, and I do think it's impossible to draw the line based on influence. That's not something you
ridiculous.
Can coherently, it's like the economic protectionists, or what would you call it? The people who want to bust trust because some company's too near to being a monopoly, so they've got this weird definition of what it means, to have too much percentage capture of the market, which they have to define anyway, it's all, these units cannot be measured. But my objection, I told Bob this too, if the Brookings Institute and all these pro-war think tanks, if their crime is arguing in the public square for big government policies, and if Jimmy Kimmel's crime is he's arguing in the public square of big government, trying to convince us to not give unvaxxed people their rights, or to kick people off social media, YouTube, Twitter back in the day. If that's the crime, isn't everyone who petitions their government at whatever level committing the exact same crime, including, like I said to Bob, building a library with stolen funds,
dude,
or doing anything? So what are we talking about here?
I thought
the literal
awesome.
Right to petition your government is being a mouthpiece for the regime, or a regime intellectual, as long as you're asking them to do something non-libertarian.
No, dude, that was such a good point you made on that episode. I think that's exactly right. If you're going to call the little old lady down the street going to her city government to try to get more funding for the public library a frickin' regime apologist propagandist, forget about it, man. I mean,
Mrs. Wiggleworth knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And we're going to get her.
It's like, dude, you're attacking a symptom, not the problem. Like, you can take aspirin to alleviate your pain, but that doesn't cure your cancer.
And don't take Tylenol or you turn into a libertarian.
Okay. All right. Look, Jimmy Kimmel is just the symptom.
I agree.
And you think he's part of the regime? Fine. But do you think he has any control of the regime? Do you think Jimmy if Jimmy Kimmel said one word against the regime, he'd be off the air tomorrow and they just replace him with somebody else? Like, he's an NPC. He's a non-player character, man. It's like, this is not worth our time.
Well, that's why I reject.
You should be defending free speech. You should be defending people's ability to tell bad jokes, especially as a comedian.
I agree.
I just, this one from Dave Smith lost me. Look, I get the emotional people. I get the fuck them. I'm tired of them just screwing us and telling us what to do and looking down on me and giving me shit. And Dave Smith has gone through a pile of shit. And for years, he's walked through it and fought through it. And maybe he's become jaded or tired or worn out, and he's just done with the whole fucking thing and just wants to fight it all.
Or maybe he's just, I mean, he was doing a solo episode. Those things are hard to do. Let me try and brighten the contrast about what we're talking about here. Because I think two very different groups of people are making the same mistake. A sort of ignorant lefty who sees corruption in the 2025 economy and says, see, this is a fall to capitalism. Look at all these crony corporations and all the evil they're doing. And free market types go, well, wait. You know, there's this horrible mixed economy. It's a blend of captured interests and false regulation and cronyism. You can't blame that on capitalism. It's this whole mixed thing. Well, Curtis Yarvin is making the exact same mistake, right? I mean, the evil is the ability to use force against peaceful people. And it's the government part of all these unions that's doing that, right? It's not the corporation part. It's the legitimized use of violence in order to exact a preferred policy prescription or to force people to fund something they don't want to fund. But lazy leftists look at the whole system and say, yes, look at that evil corporation. And now you've got people on the right doing the exact same thing. Yeah, let's use the power of the state against Jimmy Kimmel, because it's basically the same thing, Kimmel and the state. Right. And I think, no, even though they're entwined through licensure, regulatory capture, and all these other horrible, evil things, no, conceptually the two things are different. Government is different than a private business. And I know they're wedded. Right. But we can still... we can still separate those two chemically. That's not hard to do because we know what government is and we know what a private business is. And we can strip out all of those regulations and all those crony subsidies. We can get rid of all that stuff. And we know which vampire to pound the stake into their heart, the government part, not the person offering you a good or a service. And I think out of frustration, people on the right are just acting like confused lefties.
No, 100%. All right, let's get real libertarian, because I feel like this is a big, let's put a dividing line on it. So I feel like there's Rothbardian libertarians and who I want to put on the other side. I guess I'll put Friedman. I'll put Milton Friedman libertarians on the other side because they were kind of both in the same era, right? Do you have a better contrast for Rothbard?
Well, I was going to cheekily say you could use early 90s Rothbard and on the other side, late 70s Rothbard. Because one was trying to reach out to the right and the other was trying to reach out to the left.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would be cheeky. I am not educated enough on the differences between his viewpoints. So let me just put it this way. I think there's libertarians who are super Rothbardians, right? How about this? Rothbard versus Ron Paulians. Because I do not think they are the same at all.
No, not at all.
So I know Rothbard changed his mind. Maybe not changed his mind. Get accused of certain things.
He changed his tactics politically.
Yeah.
In an effort to get more libertarianism.
Right.
He changed his tactics.
Right. And I think that's okay, whatever. But, what's Rothbard's famous thing? If you were presented with a button to blow up the whole system, would you push it or not, right? That's his litmus test if you're a true libertarian or not. Would you push the button? Rothbard says yes. Friedman says no. Dave Smith says yes. Jeff Dice says no. I think if I'm.
How do you feel about this dividing line?
Okay.
Because you could think of different reasons for pressing or not pressing the button that sort of muddy the water. How about on the one side, do you really, really, really hate the state as an immoral actor? Versus,
Right. Okay.
are
Great.
you somewhat
Great.
disappointed
Okay, yeah.
with how the state is
Perfect.
behaving?
Perfect. That's way better. Because, I'm a David Friedmanite. I'm not a Milton Friedmanite. Don't get me wrong. I'm a David Friedmanite. Okay. Now, I know you could say, well, he's the son of Milton Friedman, so aren't you really the same thing? And look, if you don't love Milton Friedman, especially for his Free to Choose series, then go fuck off. You're not a libertarian. Okay. Milton Friedman was a hero. Yes. As a Misesian, I don't agree with his necessary economic analysis, but screw that. He was 90% right on a lot of shit. And I'll take Milton Friedman any day over anybody else, right? Okay. I'll take Milton Friedman over Murray Rothbard. But you are exactly right on this. Do you hate the state? That was Murray Rothbard's litmus test. Do you hate the state? Yes. If you answer yes, Murray Rothbard was like, cool, you're on my side. If you answer no, then
go read the Anatomy of the State again.
I almost got this. David Friedman said his big disagreement with Murray Rothbard was, no, I don't hate the state. He's like, it's an organizational structure that human societies have created since the beginning of history. It's a way we developed out of the cave and we organize ourselves into this thing, and it evolved naturally. He's like, I don't hate it. He's like, I don't like it. There's things I don't like about it. I prefer anarcho-capitalism, but do I hate it? No. It's a thing. It's the way we've organized our societies. Murray Rothbard was like, if you don't hate it, you're evil. And you know what? I just can't be. I think I just can't be that way. So where do you fall on that spectrum? Do you hate the state or not?
I would point out that everybody who knew him called him the happy warrior. So yes, he hated the state, but he wasn't tied up in knots about it. He thought that making a moral judgment is an illegitimate actor. That's just the end, full stop. But I mean, I only say that because you were painting a picture of nervous anxiety and vitriol and ulcers, and he wasn't like that at all. I absolutely love Milton Friedman. Probably my first introduction to free market economics was probably Free to Choose, and then all the other things I dove into because of him. Given his time and place, he was an enormous positive force in our world. I just think that Rothbard's even more correct because he is not a minarchist and thinks that ultimately human flourishing is done better without something as evil as a state who thinks it's legitimate to exert force on peaceful people. That's all.
I think once you use the word hate, that engenders violence to me.
You have a point.
Like when you hate something, well then, I hate mosquitoes. I have no problem killing those every time I'm out in the bonfire and they're biting me, I hate them. I don't want to hate people. You know what I mean? Like, and the state, at the end of the day, it's just people. So yeah, I have a real problem with calling Jimmy Kimmel part of the regime, because if you're gonna hate the state, quote unquote, the regime is just a code word for the state here, right? Or it's an equivalent term.
And also, like a point I made to Bob, you are planning or celebrating the use of the regime against your opponent. That's why I was trying to make the argument. What we really need to be talking about is secession, right? I mean, you don't want to co-opt the regime, right? You either want to shrink the power of government so we can all live together in harmony, or we're in different political units. And hopefully we don't go to war with one another. But we're not voting for each other's candidates. We're not having that fight.
I just thought of something too. When Dave Smith said it's one gang fighting against another gang, and the way he said it sort of flippantly was like, well, I don't care then if they die. Well, I do. Like, don't you think it's terrible if there's one group of humans just killing another group of humans? Like, don't you think that's an awful tragedy of the world? And that so it's okay if the Crips and Bloods just kill each other. Like, who cares? They're just gangsters. They're just evil people. I don't care if they kill each other and slaughter each other in the street. Well, I kind of do. Like,
I also don't think part of the solution can be joining the Crips.
Yeah.
You know, that
exactly.
That can't be the way we win here. If you truly come to the conclusion that the Crips and the Bloods are so removed from humanity by their lust for power that we can't have a kumbaya moment by which we shrink government and all live under sandbox rules. If you truly believe that, then again, you don't try to wrangle the power of that state government to smite down your perceived enemies. You have to talk about secession. You have to talk about that. I can't think about the state without thinking in Tolkien's terms. You know, that ring of power. It corrupts you, and you know, your visceral reaction to the way you perceive that Dave Smith episode, that part of the problem episode. I mean, I'm seeing you looking at someone who's held the ring too long or something, or wants to possess the ring. I hate my enemies so much I want to use the power of the ring to smite them.
I think it's just, you know, this is what happens when things get bad. You lose your compassion, you lose your humanity, you become tribalistic, and you just take a side. And it's like, you don't care if people die. You don't care anymore if the Crips and the Bloods kill each other. You just don't care.
Well, you woke up a little black-pilled, Tyrone, and I hate to pile on, but the power's still on. You know, what happens 3 days after the power goes off?
I hope you have some, yeah.
It will be the most horrific thing ever.
And I'm worried we're getting there, man.
We're inching our way, and you know, people talk about taking the temperature down. I don't know if there is any taking the temperature down when one side wants to dominate the other.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the only solution to that is a peaceful divorce, right?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I know we're small fish in a tiny, tiny pond, but man, the way things are going, we're going to be on somebody's bad list, right?
I know. Whichever side I end up being aligned with, I'm going to be the hated minority.
We'll probably get shot by both sides.
Either one, yeah. Exactly.
Because we're libertarians. Both sides hate us, so whatever.
We'll be up against the wall first, no matter who wins out. These particular people, like the leftist who looks at our modern state and sees the evils of capitalism, they don't want to look at the problem along our dimension, freedom and liberty, because they want to use the power of the state for their own ends. Curtis Yarvin wants to use the power of the state for his own ends. That's why he has to frame things his way. Mm-hmm. These things are inextricably tied together, and all we can do is seize them so that we get to control all this power. And I don't know if we've done anything other than push our peas around our plate on this episode, but again, think along the correct dimension, which is freedom versus authoritarianism. Right. Don't try to seize the ring of authoritarianism. Right. Reject it. Put it down. And that doesn't mean start a civil war. That means start a secessionist movement.
Yes.
And try not to, with whatever smaller decentralized political unit you end up in, choose anarchy. But if you don't, try not to push your neighbors around. Yeah. Shrink the power of your mayoral office, your county commission. Let everybody live their lives the way they want to live, and maybe then we won't have to kill each other. Yeah, I think we all get hypnotized into thinking it's this red v blue nonsense, and it just ain't. Yeah. All right, well, that's relatively positive. I hope you drink a Guinness this evening rather than jump off your balcony. This was great, Tyrone. Ladies and gentlemen, please go check out the Haman Nature Substack, hamannature.com, hamannature.substack.com, Haman.
All the Hamans. You just
every
type in the Hamans.
Worship the Hamans. What could go wrong with that? This was great, my friend. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time on Haman Nature.